Last Friday, Joe Biden signed a bipartisan bill to avert a nationwide rail worker strike, drawing criticism from both the more conservative wings of the Republican Party and the more liberal and leftist wings of the Democratic Party. To understand how we got here, it's important to lay down some background information. Corporate railroad executives for many years have been cutting down on resources and workers, leading to a strict attendance policy which required them to be on call for multiple weeks at a time, as well as getting very little breaks while working. Negotiations between railroad companies and unions have been going on since 2019 when the contracts expired, and have continued to this day. In February of 2022, a new point system called High Vis was put into place, which gave each worker 30 points to start out with, and every day they had off was a point lost. One union boss called it the worst and most egregious attendance policy, and it nearly led to a strike. In July of 2022, Biden formed a presidential emergency bond to help negotiate between the unions and railroad companies to avoid a strike, which would likely have devastating impacts on the economy. With a plan being released that included increased pay and gave an additional paid day off, 3 unions agreed to the conditions, while 10 rejected them. Again in September, Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh hosted negotiations, with Biden reportedly being heavily involved, but worker discontent remained. In November of 2022, Biden requested that Congress pass the plan the Presidential Emergency Board had negotiated, due to a likely railroad strike being occurred in unions. Many, specifically on the left, criticized the plan for not giving workers paid sick leave. Progressive Bernie Sanders in a tweet stated, quote, "Last year, the rail industry made a record-breaking $20 billion in profit after cutting the workforce by 30% over the last 6 years. Meanwhile, rail workers have zero guaranteed paid sick days. Congress must stand with rail workers." End quote. The lack of paid sick leave also drew concern from notable conservatives, including Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, with Cruz stating that the railroad workers' demands for paid sick leave was, quote, "reasonable." Legislation was introduced in the House to amend the plan, adding 7 days of paid sick leave. All House Democrats voted in favor, as well as 3 Republicans, while every other House Republican voted against, leading to a final vote result of 221 to 207. Then passed with a vote of 290 to 137 and sent to the Senate. Most of the votes against were Republican, but 290 no votes were Democrats, who criticized the plan for not being agreed to by the unions, stating that the amendment to add paid sick leave was doomed to fail in the Senate, due to it needing 60 out of 100 votes to pass. This assessment was unfortunately accurate, as Senate Dems could not gather the support needed to pass the paid sick leave amendment, due to only 6 Republicans voting in favor and with 1 Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, defecting. The bill was then passed to the Senate on a vote of 80 to 15. Of the 15 opposed, 10 were Republicans and 5 were Democrats. The 5 defecting Democrats were mainly progressives, like Bernie Sanders of Vermont and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who claimed they could not support the bill due to its lack of support for paid sick leave. Biden signed the bill last Friday, drawing criticism. Many progressives opposed the bill, claiming that Democrats, as the supposed party of labor, were supposed to protect union interests, and by making it illegal to strike, they contradicted their platform. While Biden defended his actions by stating, quote, "Our nation's rail system is literally the backbone of our supply chain. So much of what we rely on is delivered on rail, from clean water to food and gas and every other good. A rail shutdown would have devastated our economy. Without freight rail, many of our industries would have literally shut down." And that is the rail labor dispute summarized.